This is the evaluation of robbery. You would need this for an essay only and not a scenario. The first issue I would discuss is the sentencing. There's a big jump in sentencing from 7 years for theft to a maximum of life for robbery. And considering that force can actually be quite minimal, it seems like a big jump. Hopefully, though, that would be reflected in the sentencing, and if you only used minimal force, you wouldn't get a long sentence. The second issue is it's a very broad offence. Robbery, we lump together a street mugging, which is probably not that serious. So a street, or may not be that serious, a street mugging, a minor mugging, and a bank robbery. So it all comes under the same heading. Now, there are a lot of elements that have to be proved for robbery, and I think that's perhaps problematic because if one of those elements isn't there, then you can't have a robbery. So, for example, the case of Robinson was not a robber because there was that single element that wasn't present. They thought they had a legal right to the property, therefore, there was no theft, therefore, there was no robbery. The next point that you could discuss is the fact that force only has to be minimal. It's up to the jury to decide what is minimal force. You do have issues with jury members perhaps not appreciating what's minimal force. Is snatching something from somebody's hand minimal force? You've got the cigarette case where they said that snatching a cigarette from someone's hand was not enough, so RP and others, yet force turns theft into an indictable offence, which is very serious. The word force is meant to be an easy word for jurors to understand, and you could discuss whether you think it is easy to understand or not. There's also a very low clear-up rate for robbery. Apparently it's only about 7%, so there are public protection issues. It means a lot of people are not being charged and convicted for robbery. The issue of Lockley is definitely one to discuss. The Theft Act clearly says that the force must be used immediately before or at the time of the theft. Did Parliament intend for force to be used afterwards? So judges have given quite a wide interpretation. They definitely haven't used the literal approach when looking at cases like Lockley, and they've said, well, theft is still ongoing, so therefore the force is being used at the time of the theft and the person is guilty of robbery. So I would question whether judges are going too far beyond their role because, as we know, the Theft Act is made by Parliament, which is good because Parliament is sovereign. So are judges actually making law here or are they just interpreting it? So that's something that's worthy of discussion. You also need to mention reform. There are no current reform proposals from the Law Commission, and Parliament is, I presume, reasonably satisfied with the law. One suggestion, though, that you could put down as a potential reform is the idea that maybe there should be two types of robbery. Maybe we should have a minor type of robbery, so for street muggings with a lower sentence, and maybe we should have a more serious type of robbery, so when somebody is severely injured. But as of today, there are no current reform proposals. So those are some of the key points for robbery. You would have to put those points in along with the AO1 for an essay.